there was one girl who I had talked to for a while. And this is when I was living in DC. So if you've never lived in DC, like, it's some of the worst fucking traffic ever. And, like, it's also kind of weird in the sense that, like, the highway system doesn't go through the city. So, like, most people who live in a city, there is a highway system that kind of connects and runs through the city. But, like, New York and DC and, you know, I'm sure there's others, like, it's really designed to go around because they don't like the idea of there being, you know, overpasses to the city. But I also would imagine that it's a safety concern that, you know, when you were talking about DC, where there's presidents and, you know, political figures and foreign diplomats and things, like, the idea of an overpass where you have a high up area where people can just stop their car, whatever, like, that doesn't, you know, do well for security reasons. So you have to go around, which means, like, you know, trying to get from the inner part of the city, or the southern part of the city, to the northern part of the northern to the south, or whatever, and going across the city with horrible traffic, or trying to get to the outskirts to then get to the highway to go around. It's an issue. So there's somebody I was talking to, and I want to say, like, you're not that far as, like, the crow flies, but it's like an hour, hour and a half in terms of actual drive distance to see them. So it's kind of one of those things, again, where, you know, in terms of search filters for dating sites and things, she popped up, but it's also like, you seem great and all the things, but this is a logistical nightmare to come see you. So I'm working, I'm doing all the things, and so I get a message from her about meeting a particular weekend. So it just happened to be like, hey, I'm completely off. I've got like a 3-day weekend. And like, I remember it being weird because like her 3-day weekend didn't like correspond with like a holiday or anything like that. Like she just happened to have 3 days off of work back to back. And she's like, there's got to be at least some time in this 3 or 4 days that I have off that we can do something with our schedules and meet up. And like, that's a really sweet thought. However, I had taken a side gig job for that weekend. So I was a pretty high-end interrogator in the military and for government things. And one of the states where that is admissible into court is in Maryland. So I was working with a defense attorney with you know, a client where I had to go take statements and do interrogations and basically do like lie detection, basically saying if somebody was lying about something. So I have to keep driving back and forth between Annapolis, where the cases is taking place, and all the way out to Hagerstown, where the prison is, because I have to interview some people. Can't really go into details about the thing, but anyways, I tell her I have an interrogation job out in Hagerstown, and that I'm, you know, I have deadlines and that I have to do this. So she's like, oh, okay. So this, you know, goes on for a little bit, and I want to say like a week or so later, like she's texting me back, and I should also probably point out that this is one of those relationships that, or, you know, meetings, whatever, where this isn't going anywhere. This is just going to be for fun. And like we're talking, and we've got a date set. I think it was like that weekend. So we're like, hey, this is like on Wednesday. We're gonna see each other on Friday. Great. And I let something slip about the fact that I have Asperger's, which I recognize for most of the people who are, you know, in the know. They're like, it's not called Asperger's anymore. It's autism spectrum disorder or some bullshit. Which also, just as a side note, if you have Asperger's or autism spectrum disorder, whatever, you really don't do well with change. So the fact that they keep changing the term that you use really just pisses people like me off and like is a trigger. And yet all of the quote-unquote well-meaning people in the know keep wanting to correct you because they think that they're helping. So anywho, like I let that slip because I'm not like ashamed of it. It's part of who I am. Like I'm very high functioning. And I let this slip, and she's like, yeah, we can't see each other anymore. And I'm like, why? Like, it's not contagious, you know, and I'm very high functioning. And then she's like, well, I just have a feeling that you are going to say things that are going to be hurtful to me. And I'm like, please explain this. Well, people with Asperger's, they can't help themselves. They just say mean things. And I'm like, that's minorly offensive. Maybe accurate, maybe inaccurate, but please explain this to me. And she's like, well, you've already done something like this to me. And I'm like, please explain this to me like I'm 5. What have I done to hurt your feelings? Like, I feel like I'm the world's worst texter, and I will freely admit that, but, like, I can at least appreciate where, you know, when I'm in a rush and I text, I don't necessarily think of how someone could read it. I have big hands, and, like, when you're trying to, you know, thumb a small little screen and you're trying to type on there, like, I make a billion errors and keep having to, like, go back and delete things and rewrite and so on and so forth. So I hate texting. I'm the world's worst texter, and I much prefer a keyboard or just to call. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, whatever you want to call it. But I go through and I'm like, I haven't said anything mean to you. And she's like, well, the one time that I wanted to make plans with you, you said I was interrogating you. So I go back, I read this through, I was like, no, I didn't say that you were interrogating me. I said that I took an interrogation job. I personally, like maybe I hadn't explained all of the details and backstory of, like, this is actually a job, this is actually something I get paid for, this is actually, I don't get these jobs all the time, but when I do get jobs from defense attorneys and things of that nature, I make really good money. I make, some of the best money that I will make, way better than, like, my normal day job, and, I don't really like turning those down. And she's like, oh, well, that makes sense, but you're still probably an asshole. And I'm like, so you're basing the fact that I'm an asshole based upon something that I said that you took out of context and projected. The entire onus of the, interrogating me, accusing you of interrogating me because, I said I was busy that weekend. You understand that I didn't say anything that could be objectively mean. You just subjectively took it that way. And rather than, like, have that cleared up to realize that, oh, I'm really not a dick and I'm, just explaining things, you didn't take that to be like, oh, you did something normal that you were just, communicating effectively. You're like, no. I still felt a certain way. So therefore, it's your fault because I am not in control of my own emotions, and you, as the, male emotion impulse person that I'm dealing with, I'm looking for the slightest thing to say that, maybe you're not the best, so Asperger's, get the fuck out. Cool. You're a shallow bitch.